So, I'm very happy to be here tonight. Thank you for inviting me, for coming together. And Tony told me you have been studying the 7th chapter of Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life.
No, 8.
You finished the 7th?
We're in the middle of the 8.
Oh, okay. But anyway, you asked me to do a meditation on equanimity?
Right.
Okay.
As you said, you cannot go through without equanimity.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to do that. And I thought that I'll first just talk about it, explain it, the context of where it comes in the practice and why it's important to practice it. And then we'll do a meditation together for a while. And then afterwards we can discuss if you have questions, comments, complaints, whatever, you can share those. So I guess one way of talking about it would be in the context of what are called the 4 immeasurable thoughts. Have you heard of those?
Yes.
So this is a practice that's actually found in all traditions of Buddhism. Theravada, Mahayana, Zen, Tibetan. And there are 4 attitudes or states of mind that we are recommended to develop because they help us in our spiritual practice. They're necessary to progress to enlightenment, but just in our, our everyday life, they're very, very helpful to have. So even if someone's not interested in becoming enlightened, to help all living beings, that's quite a high goal. But just to be able to get along with our family, our friends, our neighbors, people we work with, get along in life, it's very helpful to have these 4 attitudes. So the 4 are, is this for me?
Everything's for you.
There must be a mistake here.
One is with the milk, one without, and then...
Yeah, because I don't really have
like
black
coffee?
tea. Maybe if somebody else wants it.
You
I'm
like
happy to
black
just...
tea?
Is this peppermint tea?
No, that's regular.
Regular tea. Oh, okay. Well, if somebody else wants
Yeah, warm and-
tea with milk, without milk, please help yourself. I'll just take the water. Okay, so these 4 immeasurable thoughts are love. Well, the first one is sometimes called love, but that word can have so many different meanings and connotations. It can be a little complicated. So sometimes we use the word loving kindness instead. Metta in Pali language. And that is explained as the wish for others to be happy. So we already have that with our friends, our family, our pets. We're able to feel that quality, that attitude for certain people, certain beings at certain times. It's like when we see that person and we see them as really wonderful and lovely and worthy or deserving of our care and our kindness, our attention, and we want to do what we can to make them happy. So that's the meaning of loving kindness. But when we talk about the 4 immeasurables, we're trying to develop that quality for more and more and more and more and more people instead of just a limited number, which is what usually happens. We can feel it for some people, but not for others. And even for the people we do feel it for, sometimes we don't feel it. We can get angry at them and, even hurt them, which is the opposite of loving kindness. But anyway, we have that quality and we can work on it and develop it more and more and more. So there's meditations for how to do that. And the second is compassion. Compassion is the feeling of wanting others to not suffer. And that's what comes up when we see somebody is suffering, especially somebody we already care about, a dear friend or family member or pet. Or it could happen for a stranger as well. When you see somebody is unhappy, is in pain, is troubled, is obviously not in a good space, then this feeling can come up. You feel moved, you feel touched, and you want to do something to help them, to stop their suffering. Okay, so that's the feeling of compassion. And again, we all have it, at least sometimes. Something that comes up in us. I find it in myself, it comes up most easily with little beings, like little children. If you see a little child crying, looking really unhappy, really sad, or frightened, maybe they got separated from their parents and they're lost and they're scared. So when you see that little kid crying, it kind of, gets to you here, and you just can't avoid doing what you can to help this little child. And the same with little animals. I mean, not everybody likes little animals, but a lot of people do. So when you see a little, cat or dog or a little creature, who's scared or in pain or suffering, again, that feeling can come up in us like, oh, what can I do? I want to help you. So that's the feeling of compassion. So again, we all feel it sometimes, but we can increase it to feel it more and more and more for more people, more beings. That's a really, really important part of our practice. And then the third immeasurable is called joy. And joy is when we share in the happiness of others. That means when someone else is happy, having a good time, or some wonderful thing has happened to them, like they just won a prize, or they just graduated, or they just got a raise in salary, or promotion in their job, and they're really happy. And we see their happiness and we share in their happiness. We feel happy too. We feel happy for them. It's like sharing in the good experiences, the good fortune, the happiness of others. So again, that's something that comes up naturally in us. For example, if you're a parent and your child does well in school or gets a prize or is just happy, playing, enjoying themselves, when you see your child happy, because you love your child, you want your child to be happy. So when they are happy, it makes you feel happy too. Does that sound familiar? The other day, I'm staying in Brooklyn right now, and on Saturday they had a block party. So it was really nice to see all the kids in the street just running up and down and just full of joy and exuberance. And it just, you're happy that they are happy. You're happy that they're having a good time. Okay, so that's the meaning of joy. And then the last of the four measurables is equanimity. So equanimity is a state of mind that's balanced, even, such that when we do develop these positive qualities for others, love, compassion, joy, and so forth, the goal, the ideal, is to do it in a balanced way, in an even way, rather than, okay, I like that person, I want to make them happy, but not that person. I want to make them suffer. Or when we see one person suffering, we want to help them, but another person, we see them suffering, and we're kind of secretly, delighting in that. So the idea is when we cultivate these positive qualities, loving kindness, compassion, and joy, we do so in an unbiased way, meaning we do it for everybody. Of course, that's really hard to do, and we can't expect ourselves to have it right from the beginning. But we can work on it. We can gradually cultivate this quality so that it becomes more and more pervasive. And if we don't cultivate equanimity, then there's the danger that when we cultivate love or loving kindness, compassion, and so on, then we'll do it in a biased, uneven, or discriminatory way. We'll be meditating on loving kindness. I wish all beings could be happy except that one. So we kind of push certain people out of our positive thoughts and feelings. Or when we meditate on compassion, I wish all beings could be free from suffering except that neighbor who, they just drive me completely crazy. I We want them to suffer. So this is what can happen if we don't have equanimity, and then our cultivation of these other positive qualities is like not really ideal, not really correct. And we won't get enlightened that way. We can't get enlightened if we leave even one person out. If there's even one person excluded from our positive thoughts and feelings. We won't get there. So even that really difficult person, you have to learn to have an open heart, open mind, wish them to be happy, wish them to be free of suffering. But it's not impossible. It is possible. Buddha did it, and many others have done it since the Buddhist time. So it's possible for us too. So that's why equanimity is helpful. It helps us to stop this biased, discriminating attitude and open up to more and more and more people. And an analogy to the state of mind of equanimity that might help us understand what it's like would be that of a doctor, a good doctor who is really doing their job properly. And if this doctor has, say, 10 people in the waiting room, and they're all suffering from the same symptoms, like maybe it's flu season, and so they're all sitting out there, and they got running noses, and they're, headaches, and just feeling completely miserable. So would it be right for the doctor to discriminate and say, okay, I'm going to take care of you and you and you and you, but you guys over here, you get out of here. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to take care of you. I mean, the doctor would lose his or her license if they did that, right? That's against the ethics of being a doctor. You have to have this, isn't it? What do they call it? Hippocratic oath that you have to take care of anybody who is in need of medical attention. Otherwise you can't be a doctor anymore. But if it's a really good doctor, someone who isn't just following the rules, but really does care about people, really does take their job seriously, really wants to help people, so they will take care of everybody in their waiting room, regardless of age and gender and race and religion and any kind of basis for discrimination. Does that make sense? So the idea of equanimity that we're trying to develop is similar to that, where we have this open mind and open heart towards each and every person, just because they exist, just because they're there, and they're a living being, and we understand that basically they're just like me. They want to be happy and they don't want to suffer, and I want to help them to the best of my ability. So, it does take time to develop that attitude, but it's possible. And there are different meditations that we can do to cultivate equanimity. So one that maybe some of you have heard it before and done it before, but it doesn't hurt to do it again. It's found in the Lamrim, the teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment. Have you heard of that? Studied that?
Yeah, we studied it here.
Oh, okay. So you went through it already. Okay.
Through it is the word.
Huh?
We went through it. It's like
Yeah.
that. Traveling through someplace fast in a car. You don't really. So please stop the car and we can learn. We have cups.
Okay, this is good for when you're jogging.
Dump this.
Oh, well, just dump it in the sink
Dump
there.
it in the fountain.
Doesn't that
And you
sink?
can wash it out. Thanks, Michael.
Is that a music class next door?
There's a gym downstairs.
They
Zumba.
might not have to do Zumba now, they'll go squeeze.
They're boxing.
That's okay.
Okay, that's
I got a
good.
napkin here.
The lousy
Thank you.
bartender.
Okay, so this meditation is found in the Lamrim, and what you do is you bring to mind 3 people who represent 3 different groups of people. Because our normal attitude, our normal tendency is that we divide people into these 3 groups. And the terminology that's used is friend, enemy, stranger. Friend means somebody we like. So it could be a family member, could be a pet, could be a friend, but just someone towards whom you have good feelings, naturally, easily. And then enemy, that's a pretty strong word. So, I mean, some of us might really feel that we have enemies. I used to have trouble with that one, you know, like who's an enemy? And then what I came to was anybody I dislike. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone I hate or who hates me and is trying to kill me, but just someone towards whom I feel aversion or dislike or irritation. So we kind of, you know, close our heart to them, and, you know, sometimes we don't want to be nice to them. So anybody towards whom we have that kind of feeling can be an enemy. And then the third person is stranger. And the stranger, I mean, it could be a total stranger, like just somebody in the street. You don't know at all, you know nothing about them, you don't know their name, you have no feelings for them. That's the meaning of a stranger. Stranger is someone towards whom we don't like, we don't dislike, we don't have liking, we don't have aversion. Just neutral or indifferent kind of feeling. So everybody we meet, everybody we see, everybody around us will fall into those 3 categories. Those that we like, those we dislike, those we are indifferent to. And my guess is most people probably fall into the 3rd category. The number of people we like is relatively small. The number of people we dislike is hopefully not too big. I don't know, living in a big city, maybe that's harder to do. I kind of live out in the country, and it's easy to like people when there's not too many of them around. But probably most people were just more neutral or indifferent towards. What do you think? Does that sound
Most
right?
people neutral, indifferent, strangers. I was thinking strangers myself.
Sorry?
Strangers was the larger number for me. So
Yeah. I think Pema Chodron uses the term neutrals as a noun. The neutrals, I think. Yeah. The neutrals. Because stranger can, yeah, maybe we don't like thinking in terms of strangers, but the real meaning of it is those towards whom our feelings are more, neutral. So anyway, in the meditation, we bring to mind 3 people who represent these 3 different groups. So we bring to mind a friend, an enemy, and the stranger or a neutral person. And then we just look at our feelings towards them and ask ourselves, why do we feel this way? And sometimes we never do that. We never really examine why we like somebody or why we dislike somebody, why we don't feel anything towards somebody else. So it's good to look at that. And then, once we've done that, to look at, does it feel right to be this way? I mean, like, are these good reasons for feeling this way? Are they good, solid, valid reasons that are carved in stone and will be like that forever and ever and will never change? So it's good to kind of take a step back from that and check. You know, is this really the way I want to be? Is it good to be this way? And we might discover it doesn't feel completely okay. Because what can happen is we can be a bit like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You know, towards our friends, we're just so sweet and kind, and the best comes out of us. And then towards the enemy, we can be like a monster or just really horrible and nasty. And does that feel good? Is it satisfying to be that way towards another human being? even if we have all kinds of reasons to justify it, but still, is that really the way we want to be? And then also the stranger, the neutral person, towards them, it's almost like they're not even a human being, like they're a telephone pole or a fire hydrant or something like this. No feelings at all.
I had an interesting coming in here, and there was this lady who I moved out of the way so she can have access to the pole to hold on for herself. And I kept looking at her, and I thought, wow, it was really interesting, because part of the fun of living in New York is seeing what everybody's wearing all the time. And she looked to me like a lady who would do yoga on a regular basis. I mean, complete stranger, but I'm looking at her, I'm looking and studying what it is that she was wearing and that sort of thing. And I noticed on her forearm, the blouse that she was wearing, it had a tear along the seam. And I thought, oh, okay, so she's fairly athletic then. And so, I mean, I find myself always analyzing people where they're coming from their appearance. And so, and that's, it doesn't matter friends or enemies or strangers here in New York. And so the spectrum that you're presenting to me, I don't know what to make out of that. Because I find that I'm always looking at people and studying what their appearance is. Mm-hmm. So there's no neutrality there.
Oh, okay. So you're saying you don't have neutrality towards anybody.
Yeah. I mean, like Donald Trump, he gets my goat. He's, but well, no, not everybody. But the thing is, so that's a whole other study right there.
Yeah.
And I would put him towards the spectrum of enemy, but I don't quite think of him as an enemy, as a danger.
Yeah. But prior to your making this kind of study or analysis of a person, before you get involved in that, don't you think your feelings towards a total stranger are more sort of neutral?
I can't say that.
Yeah.
Would you agree that when you like someone, it's because you got to know them and they've expressed, or they have been mutual expressions of compassion and the rest of those good things? And somebody that we're calling a stranger, it's just somebody we don't know. So I don't think that I don't know that there are any real feelings there one way or another, because you don't know them. So how can there be any real pinpointing of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my understanding according to the teachings. For example, if you're in a really crowded place, like train station or airport or shopping mall, there's just all these people around you, most of whom you don't know, so you have no basis for liking them or disliking them. Now, if you start thinking about them, you might change. You might develop a liking or a disliking. But if you're just busy or trying to get to a particular place and you don't stop and think about the people and study them and so on, they're there, but you probably don't have any feelings for them. So that's how I think of the third category, the stranger. Yeah, because if you did see in that crowd of people, if you saw somebody a friend, your heart would kind of go, oh, there's so and so, my friend. Your feeling of liking would come up towards that person. On the other hand, if you saw someone you had problems with before, who may have hurt you, or you saw that person in the crowd, you'd go, ooh, that other kind of feeling would come up, and you probably want to avoid them.
Well, for me,
but
it's
all
protection.
the other people. Can I finish?
Sorry, for me, it's protection, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people in my life that I just want to step away from just because of self-protection.
Yeah.
It's not because I hate them or anything like that. I mean, I want them to be well. I want them to be okay. I just don't want to be around them for my own safety.
Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is, there are people that we don't really know, like you say, we don't know, we don't have any basis for liking or disliking. So the feeling there is just kind of more neutral. Okay, so that's this third category of person. So, so in the meditation then, we think of 3 examples of these people, And then look at our feelings towards them, check if, if there's a good reason, a good basis for feeling this way. And the real point, this meditation comes in the context of the Bodhisattva's path, okay? So that means somebody who wants to work for enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And if you want to follow that path and get to the end of that path and become an enlightened being, a Buddha, this is one attitude that needs to be developed. This non-discriminating attitude, this equanimity. Okay, so that's your kind of motivation for doing this practice. You know you've got to open up your heart to everybody and feel concern and care for everybody. Because like I said, if you leave one person out, even that person has done horrible things to you, horrible things to other people, but you still have to find a way of including that person in your kindness, your compassion. Okay, so that's your understanding. So the equanimity meditation helps us to work towards that. And one of the things that's helpful is to think about impermanence. Relationships are not permanent, fixed in stone, but they depend on different causes and conditions. Like why we like one person and get along with one person is because of certain reasons or causes and conditions. Why we dislike another person is also because of different reasons and causes and conditions. And those circumstances can change. Causes and conditions can change, such that I'm sure we've all had the experience of someone who once upon a time was a friend, someone we really loved and cared about, and then things changed and that person moved over to the other side, an enemy. It can also happen the other way, that someone we don't get along with, we have mistrust of, or fear of, or aversion towards, but then something changes and they can become a friend. Have you ever had that experience? Sure. Yeah. So it's helpful to look at that and realize that these people are not in fixed positions forever and ever and ever, but it's only because of causes and conditions which are changeable. So that's really helpful to kind of loosen up our strong clinging and grasping at these people as being in those positions forever and ever. In fact, one time I was leading this meditation with a group of people, and we did the meditation together, and afterwards we talked about it. And one woman said she actually put her husband in all three places. And I thought, she's really smart, because it's true. The same person at certain points in time can be our dearest friend, at other moments our worst enemy, and sometimes even kind of a stranger, like if she's busy doing something, trying to finish some work, and he's around, but she just can't focus on him, so it's almost like he's not there. There's just no feeling at all at that moment. So it just shows that it depends on different factors, different causes and conditions, what's going on at different times, that we have these different feelings towards people. So that really helps to realize they're not permanent, they're not fixed. And a lot of it depends on our own mind and not on the other person. Yeah? And there are things we can do with our mind, work with our mind, work with our thoughts and emotions, so that we can be more open and caring towards others. Yeah? So let's do the meditation, and we can talk about it afterwards, see if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share. Okay, so try to sit up straight with your back straight. But at the same time, don't let your body be tense. Like your shoulders should be relaxed, not tight and tense. You can have your hands resting in your lap. And as for your eyes, a lot of people like to close their eyes when they're meditating, but doing that is a little tricky because we can start to fall asleep, especially if you've had a long, busy day. Closing your eyes might lead to sleepiness. So to prevent sleepiness, you can leave your eyes open a little bit, just enough to have some light coming into your eyes. That can help to stay awake. And just have your gaze looking down onto your lap or the floor in front of you. And let's take a few deep breaths. This can help to relax us physically and mentally. So breathe in slowly and deeply. And then let the breath go out slowly. You can let it go out through your mouth if you like. And as you breathe out slowly, imagine any tension in your body or in your mind going out with your breath. And it just disappears in space. So do that for 3 breaths, and then resume your normal rate of breathing. So just keep breathing in a natural way without forcing or controlling your breath. And let your mind settle down. If you have any thoughts in your mind related to other things than what we're doing here, put them aside for now. So thoughts about the past, today, yesterday, any time in the past, or thoughts about the future, later tonight, tomorrow, or any time in the future. So let go of those thoughts, let go of the past and the future, other places, and just let your mind, your awareness be right here, right now, in the present. So now I'd like you to think of a friend, which could be a relative, family member, could be a friend, it could be a pet. The meaning of friend is someone towards whom you have good feelings, fondness, caring, affection. You find them easy to like, easy to care about. So you probably have lots of people like that in your life. But just choose one. And imagine that person in front of you, but a little bit to the left. And focusing on that person, ask yourself why you like this person. What are your reasons? bring to mind a so-called enemy, which just means a person you don't like, a person you have kind of bad feelings for, anger, or even just mild dislike or irritation. And when you have thought of such a person, imagine them in front of you, but a little bit to the right. And then focusing on that person, ask yourself why you feel this way. What are your reasons? Now think of a third person, this time a so-called stranger or neutral person. So a good way to find someone like that is to imagine yourself in a big crowd of people, most of whom you don't know. Just pick one of those people out of the crowd, a total stranger, you don't know anything about them, so you don't really have any feelings for them, liking or disliking. Just pick that person out and put them in front of you between the other two. So this is probably just an imaginary person, but it's still a kind of person that we do encounter in our life. So focusing on this person, ask yourself why you feel this way, neither liking nor disliking. So now ask yourself if it feels good, if it feels right to be this way, to have such different feelings for different people and to treat them in such different ways. Is this something you want to continue doing, or can you see there are problems and disadvantages from having this way of kind of discriminating others? So one thing that's helpful to work on this kind of biased, discriminating tendency is to think about impermanence, the changing nature of things. Because we have a tendency to feel that our relationships with others are permanent, as if they're carved in stone, they will never change. A friend will always be a friend, the enemy will always be an enemy, the stranger will always be in that position. But this isn't necessarily true. So focus again on the friend and try to imagine something happening that would change this relationship. Maybe the person does something really hurtful to you, or they just change in a very drastic way, such that it's very difficult to continue having a relationship with them. So just imagine something like that happening, and then just check your mind, your feelings, to see if there's any change. Then look again at the person on the other side, the person you dislike, and imagine something happening with this person that could change your feelings. For example, maybe one day you are in trouble, you really need help, and this person comes along and gives you help, the help that you need. See if there's any change in your mind in that scenario. Now focus again on the person in the middle, the stranger, and imagine something happening that would change this relationship. Like, for example, if you're in a crowded place and maybe you drop your wallet and you don't even know it. And this person sees it, picks it up, brings it over and gives it back to you. Would that bring any change in your mind, your attitude towards this person? equanimity is to contemplate that we are all basically the same. All human beings, and in fact all living beings. Deep down inside, in our mind or heart, we all have the wish to be happy. We're all just trying to be happy, to fulfill our needs and our wishes. And we all want to avoid suffering, problems, pain, difficulties. So thinking about those three people in front of you, see if you can understand that we all have the same wish to be happy and to be free of suffering. Another thing that we all have in common, according to Buddhism, is Buddha nature. This is the true nature of our mind, our being. And it means that the disturbing emotions like greed, hatred, ignorance, and negative factors like negative karma and so on, all of these are not permanent parts of us. They can be cleared away. We can be free of them. And then our mind has the ability, the potential to become enlightened mind. Totally pure, free of all faults, and fully developed in all good qualities like love, compassion, and wisdom. So this is something the Buddha can see when he looks at each one of us. You can see we all have Buddha nature, we all have the potential for enlightenment. And that enables the Buddha to have equal feelings for all of us, equal concern, equal dedication to helping us until we are enlightened as well. Contemplate that for a few moments, see if that could also help you have more of a sense of equanimity. Finally, if you did make any progress towards equanimity, if you do have a more kind of positive feeling towards all these three people in front of you, then just let your mind stay in that state for a few moments. Kind of soak your mind in that experience to get more familiar with it. So you can slowly come out of the meditation and open your eyes. Open your eyes. It wasn't the sound I wanted to make.
It's pretty good. And the sounds we hear here.
Yeah. There's nicer ones. Let's see. That's the nicer one. That's the one I wanted.
He's a musician.
Okay. So what do you think? Do you think that meditation is helpful, or any problems with it? Any questions about it?
It seems that the three different specifics, the one you love, the one you care about, in my case, I used the example of my cat because it's constant tenderness, constant generosity, and constant peace, except when she bites my ear and she wants to. In terms of the one I dislike, I would say in most instances, I think for most people, it's not about disliking the person, it's about disliking the behavior, whether it be cruel or aggressive or any number of things that are detrimental to people, animals, or themselves. And again, in the case of neutral, until somebody gives you your wallet back at an airport, suddenly it's not only the wallet, you know them because they gave you the wallet. You know something. This is all about awareness, right?
Well, my thought is with regard to strangers, yeah, we don't know this person at all, and because of that, there's no feelings there. But if we think about that person and we think, well, this person is probably a parent, they have children, they love their children, they care for their children love them. So we start contemplating more about the person. Even if we don't know them, we can just kind of imagine this person in different places, different situations, and see them more as a human being. Then those kind of feelings, positive feelings, can arise. But we often don't take the time to do that. Well, we don't have the time to do that. We're rushing around all day. We don't have the time to think about each and every person around us. But if we think about them more as a human being who has other human beings in their life that they give love to and receive love from, and then they start to become more of a human being to us, and we start to have more feelings for them. So that's the point. The point of the meditation is to start seeing other people as human beings similar to ourselves, similar to our loved ones, and therefore they deserve our attention, our care, our love. It's a way of opening up our mind, opening up our heart to more and more people, instead of giving our love, our kindness, our compassion only to a limited number. Did you have your hand?
So, Venerable One, I was thinking of a neutral person because, let's say the stranger returned the wallet, then I'm not saying it would take years to know somebody, and sometimes even when you live with them, you don't know them, you don't finish knowing them. But that would say, okay, person returned the wallet, maybe they're in a situation, maybe they could have used the money in the wallet, but they chose to return it intact anyway. I'd like to get to know them a bit more because they're expressing this quality of honesty.
Mm-hmm.
The person that you say you could either dislike or hate, and I know this from personal experience. I thought of 3 people because they're 3 sisters.
There's 3 what?
3 sisters,
Yeah.
like on the dislike. Because these sisters in question are my cousins who would like to see me dead a long time ago. So there's situations that if they, because I know them well enough, even if they did a seemingly good act, that's not going to change because I know it's with something else in mind.
Yeah, you know too much.
Maybe those feelings towards somebody I don't like that would change probably with somebody else, but with those three, no way.
Yeah. Well, actually, the traditional way of doing the meditation involves thinking about other lifetimes.
No, right, exactly.
But because I know a lot of people have trouble believing in past lives, future lives, so if you ask them to think about that, they kind of close off. So I usually just talk about this lifetime and how relationships can change in this lifetime. But yeah, sometimes they don't.
This could be going
There's a
way
lot
back
there.
when.
Huh?
There's a lot there, even in this life.
Yeah, but
Like the woman with the husbands, I think that's amazing. Her husband's all three, so that's great.
Sounds like a buzz.
Perfect.
But I think she's right that there are some people who don't change, who continue until the end of their days being mean and nasty and horrible and very hard to see any positive qualities in them. But if we open our mind up and think about other lifetimes, past lives, because they say, you know, everybody has been our mother, everybody's been our father, we have been the mother and father of everybody as well. So if you kind of try to imagine that, any of those sisters as a dear friend in another lifetime, or you were their mother, or they were your mother, and gave you a lot of love. There's a lot of love and warmth between you and them. It can kind of open things up a little more. Not get so fixed on how they are in this lifetime, but think about other
They
lifetimes.
practice black magic. I don't think like
Sorry?
there's nothing. They practice black magic, so I don't. There's nothing to be opened there. That's their end. That's for them to evolve.
Yeah, people do that, they do.
But can you imagine another lifetime, maybe hundreds, thousands of lifetimes ago, in which you were?
I'm working to see if I get information from other lifetimes to understand, but this, going from this lifetime and going from the family dynamic, there's a lot of jealousy and stuff. Why? Because my grandmother and I have been together 5 lifetimes together. She's always been my mother figure in some way, shape, or form, and they didn't like the way how we were close, amongst other things happening in the background. So they are not changing anytime soon. And I don't focus on them, I don't bother with them, we even went to court on this, I even told the judge, I want them in my life, forget it.
You done?
And that was 4 years ago, you know? So I leave them to themselves, let them knock themselves out. I make it a point to move forward. I don't plan to be like them anytime soon. And I'm not interested in that. There's a lot of work to be done here, and I have to evolve myself.
Yes. Venerable Sister, I mean, for myself also, for me to worry about other people on a certain level, I just want to make sure that I treat them as gently as I can. But it's me navigating my way through without messing up my own karma right now when we come across these challenges like we're talking about. So it's just navigating my way through that, so that way I can, be of service in future lives as well.
Yeah. My understanding is that cultivating equanimity doesn't mean that you have to get into close, loving relationships with everybody. That's impossible. I mean, even the Buddha. You look at the Buddha in his life, and he had enemies. There were people who didn't like him. He even tried to kill him, his own cousin, and other people as well that were jealous of him. They tried to bring him down. They spread false stories about him. I mean, they did all kinds of things to him. So even the Buddha had enemies. And he wasn't able to kind of get along with those people. But I think, my understanding is the Buddha in his mind didn't shut them out. He still cared about them, wanted to benefit them, didn't hate them, didn't hate anybody. So equanimity isn't so much about the actual interactions that we have with people, but it's more state of mind, our heart, how we feel towards others. Even if somebody's far away and there's no way we can actually get close to them, get along with them, have any relationship with them, we can still have an open heart towards them. And also, as somebody, maybe it was you, who said, sometimes we do have to protect ourselves. I mean, if there are people who hate us and maybe want to harm us and kill us, we shouldn't be naive and just, put ourselves in harm's way. So we do need to take care of ourselves. But we can still do that without shutting that person out of our heart. The idea is to try to have an open heart towards everybody. But it is hard and may take, a lot of obstacles to work through to get to that point.
I have another example.
Could you talk louder?
Oh, I'll try, thanks. I'll for you, Jen. I have another example from my own life recently. I developed osteoarthritis in my knee. Osteoarthritis in my knee, which I was struggling with for a couple of years. And I couldn't figure out why, no matter what I would do, somehow I would do something that would push me back. It would push me back. So I did consult with a very trusted person who can read past lives. And he discovered that. And he asked me to think of who I might think of. I'm an academic. So you know what they say in academia. The politics are so vicious because the stakes are so small. And this was somebody with whom I was always on the opposite side of any argument. So I immediately thought of her. And so he said, she put a curse on you.
Somebody from this lifetime, you say?
In this lifetime.
Someone put a curse on you?
No. And what he explained to me, now I've done a lot of work in my practice with having past lives read and people having, and I believe in all of this kind of thing. And what he said to me...
The person is here now that you told me.
Yes, I'll explain. I'll try to get... that in a past life, we had been together for 30 years, trading curses. It wasn't just her, it was me, just as much as her. Yeah, and so, my job was not only to forgive her, but to forgive myself. And I embarked on that for quite a while. It was very difficult. But one day, we were at a faculty meeting, and I was having trouble opening this door, and she ran over and opened the door for me. And we smiled at one another. And everything changed. And now, at this point, I don't think we won't ever be best friends, but we have respect for one another, and a lot of the time we're on the same side of the arguments. So, this from my own personal experience here in this lifetime, and I think also very much in gratitude for the Buddhist teachings that help deepen it and expand all of that kind of thing. My own experience, this can happen, but it needs a lot of work also if you're willing to do it. I mean, at least it did for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminded me of a story I read in, it may have been a Philip Kapleau, a Zen teacher. Philip Kapleau.
From Rochester.
Yeah. And he told a story of a student of his who, let's see, how's it go? Yeah, she had difficulty with somebody at work, this guy. And just right from the beginning, they were like this. And they just, couldn't get along, couldn't work together. It was really, really challenging for her. And she did a regular practice of meditation. So once in her meditation, she remembered a past life long ago, when probably in medieval times, and she was a mother, and she had this little baby who was blind and deaf and very badly disabled. And one day she put a pillow over the baby and suffocated it. And when she remembered this, she could feel the anger from the baby, and she realized this guy was that baby. And then I think she remembered another life where they were on the other side. I think it was during an Inquisition. He was one of the Inquisitionist, and she was one of the victims, like being burned at the stake or something really horrible. So these memories were just coming up in her mind, and she didn't, anyway. So anyway, it helped her understand why she had problems with this guy. And then she thought, she wondered, should she talk to him about it? And she tried. So she invited him to coffee one day, and they sat down, and she told him these stories, and she kind of thought he might think she was crazy, but apparently he didn't. Apparently he accepted it, and from that time on, they were able to get along with each other. Mm-hmm. So just by understanding the previous life interactions, events that were the cause for this life, because they didn't even know why they didn't get along. It was just this personality thing. They just couldn't get along. But yeah, so that is what they say in Buddhism, that the people we meet and the interactions we have and the problems we have or the good times we have is the result of our karma from the past. And if we can clear that up this lifetime, then it's really good. Then we won't have any more problems in the future. But if we continue kind of fighting and hurting each other in this lifetime, we're just continuing, perpetuating. So it sounds like you had a good experience.
I still have. Every time I see her.
Yeah.
And, I can feel so different. And I know she does too about me. And she didn't have to do anything. I had to do it.
But I think that's the thing. If people feel from us, if they feel an openness and a care and a concern, then that helps them to be more open. On the other hand, if they feel dislike and aversion and suspiciousness and so on, then they'll close up. So I think if we do want to improve relationships with others, of course we still have to protect ourselves, but we can still have a kind of open heart, open concern and care for others. And it might make things better in our relationships. No guarantee, but yeah, it's possible.
I could, of course, go on forever about the person I dislike, but I'm really wondering about the equanimity towards oneself. If you have any thoughts on that. Just a caveat is thinking about the past lives with that person. Very helpful with any of these people. But that was extremely helpful. But maybe my worst enemy is myself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, normally in the traditional teachings, they talk about love and compassion for others, other beings. They don't usually talk about it for oneself. But because, and it seems the Tibetan people and maybe other Asian people don't have such a problem with self-hatred.
Right.
When the Dalai Lama heard about Western people having a lot of self-hatred, then he was like, what? He was like really surprised that people have that. So since then, he's been addressing it when he teaches, and he talks about how important it is that we have compassion for ourselves, be kind to ourselves, because if we can't be nice to ourselves, then we won't be able to really have kindness and compassion for others. So there, in the traditional Tibetan teachings, then there's not really specific methods for developing compassion and love for oneself, but in the Theravada tradition, they do talk about that more. So when you're meditating on loving kindness or meditating on compassion, you include yourself. Sometimes you start with yourself. There's no fixed order. One teacher said, maybe it's better not to start with yourself because you're the hardest one. So start with a friend and then a stranger and put yourself last. Because by the time you've been meditating on loving kindness for others, your heart is more open and it'll be easier to love yourself. But anyway, it is an important part of the practice.
One of my teachers said, put yourself in front of yourself.
Yeah?
What about that?
Visualize
Kind of
yourself.
helpful.
Yeah? There's different ways of doing it, so if that works for you. There's a woman who did a lot of research on self-compassion and wrote a book about it, Kristen Neff. N-E-F-F, yeah.
M-E?
N-E-F-F, Neff. She's a psychologist and also a meditator. And she spent 10 years doing research on self-compassion. So the book is, presenting her research, but she also brings in her own story and how she had to, she struggled with this and how she worked on it, and gives advice on how to have more self-compassion. She also has a website, so if you look up the website, it's just called selfcompassion.org.
Of course.
At least it's not .com.
Huh?
It costs you.
The name of the book is Self-Compassion. The name of the website is Self-Compassion. There may be other people as well who are working on that, but I've read her book and it's really, really wonderful.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Yeah, so she gives a lot of advice in there on how to work on that, how to develop more compassion for oneself.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Huh?
I was thinking of the question in terms of equanimity, if you can maybe help me put in some ideas around, so like accepting criticism from others in a more, in a way that's more neutral or doesn't make you go towards like either criticizing yourself excessively or kind of being hurt because you were, thinking the world of yourself, but someone's criticizing you. So if I can, kind of, what would be like your response? Or
So you're talking about situations where you are being criticized by somebody? And how to
yeah,
deal?
we're receiving criticism of different forms and kind of perceiving it through the same lens that we just did with the person you like, dislike, or a stranger, if it's possible.
I don't quite understand what you're saying. How criticism towards you relates to these three types of people?
So, for example, you receive criticism, you automatically categorize that person as someone you dislike,
Yeah.
and vice versa. Someone praises you, you put them in the,
Right. Well, this is, we didn't have a whole lot of time to do the meditation, but what I like to do is, when looking at my reasons for liking people or disliking people, if you really go into that, spend time on that, you might discover that the ego is a big part of it. The people we like are the ones that make us feel good. They treat us in a nice way, say nice things to us, give nice things to us. So they kind of, make me feel good. And then the reason for disliking, maybe not everybody, but in some cases, the people we dislike, it's because of the opposite thing. They're not nice to me, they may hurt me, do things bad to me, make me feel terrible, and so on and so forth. So a lot of it comes down to this person is good because they make me feel good. This person is bad because they make me feel bad. So we're not so much looking at them from their side and, their qualities or whatever, but it's very much about me. And I find that really helpful to look at and work on. Of course it takes time to do that, but so ideally, even if someone isn't nice to me or doesn't treat me well, is that really a valid reason for, closing off to this person and saying this person is lousy, this person is bad, I don't want to give them any kindness? Does that make sense? Of course, we want to be treated well by people. We don't want to be treated badly by people. But sometimes it happens, and it may have nothing to do with me. Yeah, sometimes people karma from past lives, or they're in a bad mood, or they're in pain, or they just want to take it out on somebody, and I happen to be there. So it may not be a personal thing if someone is, critical or not nice to me. It may really not be anything to do with me. It's something to do with them, and it could also be something temporary. It's just the way they are today, but maybe tomorrow they're not going to be like that again. So I'm just talking quickly, but those are some things that I use to try to work on that kind of situation where someone isn't nice to me or they're critical of me. There's still reasons for keeping my heart open to that person. Does that make sense? Also, I was talking about this over the weekend. We were talking about the 8 worldly dharmas. You know about that one? The 8 worldly concerns, yeah. One of those is about praise and blame, and how, yeah, we are very much affected by people saying good things or bad things about us. But it's ideal not to let our mind be so affected by that. Because for one thing, do other people really know us? Do they really know how we are? You know, like sometimes you might act out of a, good reason, good motivation, you're trying to do good, and somebody criticizes you. But do they really know what's going on inside of you? And are they in a position to accurately assess how you are and what you're doing? My thought is we are the only ones who know what's really going on inside of us, why we're doing what we're doing, what our reasons are, what our motivation is, what our qualities are. So other people don't necessarily know that, and they may just be projecting their own stuff on us inaccurately, mistakenly. So is it right to pay so much attention to what other people say? And let our mind go up and down like a yo-yo, Our feelings and our sense of self-confidence and self-esteem. Is it right to kind of be at the mercy of other people and their praise and their criticism? I mean, we're all like that. Of course, it's a natural thing, but it's one of the things we need to work on to progress along the path. In fact, it's way before the Bodhisattva's path. It's right at the beginning. Small scope level of the path, that's where the 8 worldly dharmas comes in. Of course, it's not easy to be free of these 8 worldly concerns, but it's good to at least be aware of them and find ways of being, again, equanimity. They also talk about equanimity with regard to the 8 worldly concerns. So that's a little bit different than what we've been doing here. Equanimity with regard to the 8 worldly concerns means not letting our mind be so much affected by these experiences, whether people praise us or they criticize us. Yeah? Trying to keep our mind even and balanced regardless of what people say. And it's not easy, it's hard, but it is possible. One of the best methods for working on that is just to contemplate impermanence. Things are not permanent, things are changing. One day you get praised, the next day you get blamed, the next day you get praised again. So, things happen, they pass, and not take them too seriously, as if they're like carved in stone and they're going to be like that forever and ever and ever. So that's helpful. And also just understand when someone does say something mean and nasty, it could just be because of stuff happening with them. They got problems in their life, they're in pain, they've lost their job, their mother's sick, so there just might be things happening in their life that's causing them to be in this bad mood, and they're taking it out on you. So that can be helpful to think about.
I thought what you were saying today in the beginning, thinking of the kids, was really helpful too. So before you were leading us through the whole meditation, all of a sudden I felt like, we were like kids before and we couldn't forgive people so easily. And then when we turn into adults, it's so hard to forgive people. And all of a sudden I remember we saying, why? I was like, why? Oh, because of the attitude, because of this and that. We get like so anger very easily. And then when you were like saying, and then the word that you say about kids keep on coming back to me. It was like, yeah, my niece doesn't really get, she doesn't hold on to the anger so easily. Like after like an hour, she forgives like, other people who make her like angry or whatever. And all of a sudden in my mind today, when you're leading us, I felt like all the tension just leave from my mind, from my head. Like, oh wow, this is like so good. There's like the tension, all these pressure, all these like anger within myself, like, this is like, or they're like, you're right, the impermanent. I was like, oh my God, this is so good feeling, So I can share. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah, maybe we should turn into like a little kid's mind more, like,
So you're a mother? You have
No,
kids?
no, no,
The school teacher.
Teacher.
You're a
yeah.
teacher.
Second grade.
I never thought of the kids as
She's a big mother.
using it in my meditation. Tonight is the only night I kind of like, because you reminded me in the beginning.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
There's a mother, about 40 kids in your class?
No.
35? How many do you have in the class?
32.
32.
Wow, that's a big class.
Second grade.
Was there sort of the woman who visualized her husband? Did she say there was a? Because to me that almost is an expression of where we want to, what we want to realize. So was there sort of a next level that she went to after that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we just did a meditation like we did here, and then she just shared how she put her husband in these 3 places, and then I think I probably talked about how that's actually quite insightful, because we can have this totally opposite feelings towards the same person at different times because of different things going on. And to me, that indicates there's no permanent fixed enemy, permanent fixed friend, but it's all like fluid and flexible and depending on changing circumstances, causes and conditions. So I think insight into that is very helpful, to not hold on so tightly to our feelings and our relationships as if they will never change. And also to recognize the role that our own mind plays, that it's not this person is an enemy from their own side, inherently, independently of anything else, but it's how my mind relates to them. Because that's another thing I find really helpful to think about, is the person that to me is an enemy, for other people that person is a friend. They love that person, they think that person is so wonderful, so great, so many good qualities they see in them. Yeah, so that kind of helps to loosen things up too. It's just because of my interaction with this person, my thoughts, my attitudes, that I see them that way, but not everybody else sees them that way.
But Venerable Sister, that's when it becomes even more irritating. Because
For you.
yeah, exactly. That's when it becomes even more irritating, because they're friends with everybody else, but what's going on here? So just putting that out there, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the same with the friend, the person that you like so much. There are other people who would see that person as an enemy. Who can't stand that person. And the same with a stranger. There are people who like that person, people who don't like that person. So just to see that a lot of it has to do with our own mind and how our mind is thinking and relating and so on and so forth. And this can be changed. We can change that. So just to tell one more story, back in the early 2000s when George Bush was still president, he was an object that I was putting over in the side a lot. I felt a lot of anger, especially because of the war, the Iraq war and so on. And one time I was attending some teachings by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And in between talking about this classic Buddhist text, he would talk about different politicians and political issues and so on. And one day he talked about George Bush. And he said, I I like George Bush. And he said it with genuine joy and warmth. And were you there?
No, I saw it on video. He said,
Yeah.
not very much, but because he was natural.
He said, I don't like his politics, but I like him as a person because he's really down to earth or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. And it just blew my mind because I really respect the Dalai Lama. He's not stupid at all. And he's met George Bush. I never even met him.
He
Yeah?
stayed with him out at his
They
ranch.
stayed together, they talked together, they spent time together. So he's in a better position than me to know what kind of person George Bush is. So that really made me like work on my mind and you know, think, okay, maybe there are some good qualities in this person. I mean, nobody's 100% bad. Nobody has only bad qualities and zero good qualities. Everybody has some good qualities. But when we dislike somebody, what we do is we tend to see them as 100% bad and nothing good. And that's just unrealistic. Nobody's like that.
Nobody is all bad or all good, but the thing is, we're talking here about insight, awareness, but when it goes to an extreme, like it's happening in this country, you're talking about George Bush, where ethics are very, very seriously endangered, I'm not too sure it's that you can feel sorry to someone for their behavior that's so extremely detrimental and brutal and potentially ready to destroy the world via this war or that war. I think at that point, I'm not so sure it's the best I can do is feel sorry for a president that's about to go to war here, there, or other.
Excuse me, Sherry?
But the thing is, when it comes to basic ethics and basic diplomacy, if it's not happening at the same time, my compassion is somewhat, I don't know the word I would use, my compassion would be because of the person's ignorance, because they're taking the world to war, and I can say I feel great compassion to anybody who would go the distance.
And they will suffer because of it.
Right, and you think
Well,
Yeah,
about
but
the
you have to
time.
resist it as well as
Heavy
being
suffering.
compassionate. You know, sitting in a lotus position and meditating is very important. But at the same time, that's why the younger, you know how I feel about this, the younger
Yeah.
people are doing a lot of great things to show people that there is an ethical, green way to live, work, think, befriend, love, and the rest. But there are extremes where you have to say, okay, this is not good.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And, you know, having love and compassion and all these positive qualities doesn't mean you condone everything that everybody does. You can still have love for them, but say, like His Holiness said, I don't like this. I don't like what this person is doing. This person is creating harm and suffering for others, for themselves. So those actions, you know, we can separate the person and the action. Somebody else, I think you said that, or somebody said that. It's the action, the behavior, the attitudes that we are focusing on and saying, that is wrong, that is bad. But the person themselves, if we can see them as having good qualities, having Buddha nature, having the potential to transform and eventually become enlightened. So we don't want to hate the person and condemn the person, but the actions, that
The
behavior.
behavior.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure we use DT Donald Trump as an example, or many other people like him, who are in, I mean, they're human beings, enjoys playing golf, and
He
has
showed
a
his
nice-
strength. He didn't throw cruise missile strike. He did. He said, I want to kill another 40 people for a drone. There's something there.
You know what he said?
He's mild.
He said, I don't want to
compared
kill
Kill
1,000
people.
people, it wouldn't be fair.
No, he
Now,
said
what
that.
kind of person, it's
Well-
not about a kind, what human being would say, I don't want, I think this
He
was in
said
relationship to.
For the drone, he said, I don't want to kill people. They estimate 150 people will die.
That
because
wouldn't be
it's
fair.
not fair because no human died on our side.
Yeah, but-
All right, there's some light there. That's all. There's a crack.
Yeah.
You know.
His
That's
Holiness
all.
was in Israel and was asked, what about Hitler and Buddha nature. That's a video I would like to see.
What about what?
Hitler and Buddha nature.
Oh, Hitler.
About Hitler having compassion for
Well,
Hitler.
and all kinds of killing. I mean, that's where it goes eventually. There's a point where you either get off the bus or you help the bus driver, right? I mean, there's a point where
No, I think there's a point where you're starting to become a small way like them. And I think what you have to do is sit on your cushion or just engage in human life and realize, as she's saying, these aren't permanent. What if you started doing all these compassionate things? What if you really stood up for human rights in Hong Kong? What if you just did people have the capacity to change? And if they don't, it's coming from a mentally afflicted place that you want to restrain something unhealthy, just like you want to restrain the child you love from doing something wrong, but it doesn't mean it's coming from a place of hostility.
Well,
You know,
but there's a
and I
point where
mean,
you have
you know,
to say no and stand up for what is.
Yes.
well, it doesn't
Huh?
mean it doesn't come
Food
from,
fight.
and you got to be careful how judgmental you are on everything. I'm not going to say you're the figurative.
It's our karma that has brought us here. It's our karma that has brought us all here.
Yeah,
Everything's impermanent in our time. This country.
yeah.
What we should do is do 8 verses, train the mind for a long life. She's going to a long trip, part of it to the Middle East, so we'll pray for her safety and everything.
Oh my goodness.
She's in the, well, she's doing, applying the medicine where it's needed. Bless her heart.
Oh, trying.
With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of sentient beings who surpass even wish-granting tools, I will learn to hold them supremely